Maria wiped her hands on the worn apron that bore the faint stains of the day's work. The grand studio around her buzzed with excitement and soft chatter, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and fresh fabric. Tonight was the launch event for a new fashion collection, and the room overflowed with elegantly dressed designers, models, and influencers who paused between sips of champagne to admire the dazzling garments displayed on mannequins. Maria stood quietly near a corner, sweeping the floor with practiced motions, her plain clothes a stark contrast to the shimmering gowns and tailored suits surrounding her. She kept her gaze low, her heart caught in a knot of nerves and fatigue, reminding herself this was just one more long night before she could return home to her small apartment. Vanessa, the sharp-eyed and notoriously unforgiving head designer, surveyed the room with an air of superiority. Dressed in a tailored black ensemble that emphasized her authority, she moved through the crowd like a queen inspecting her court. Her gaze flicked past the fashion elite until it landed on Maria, busy with her broom near the stage. Vanessa's lips curled into a disdainful smile as she leaned toward her assistant and whispered harshly, "That cleaner doesn't belong here. She's out of place among real talent." Her voice was low but carried enough to catch the attention of those nearby. The words echoed like a judgment across the room, and a few curious glances flicked toward Maria, who paused mid-sweep, a sudden chill washing over her. Vanessa's sharp tone promised no kindness, only a public reminder that Maria was invisible in this glittering world. The first crack in the night's celebration was only just beginning. Vanessa didn't stop at the whispered insult. With a deliberate sweep of her hand, she signaled to her assistant, who promptly walked over to Maria's corner. The assistant's face was stern, his eyes flicking downward in a way that suggested he thought he was delivering an unpleasant but necessary order. "Maria," he said quietly but firmly, "Vanessa has asked that you leave the event immediately. This is a private function for the design team and guests." Maria's breath hitched. The polished marble floors suddenly felt slippery beneath her worn shoes. Around her, the hum of conversation continued, but now tinged with an unmistakable shift. A sprinkle of curious stares, a few smirks. Maria's cheeks flamed as she nodded quickly, clutching her broom tighter as if it might ground her. I was just finishing up," she whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. The assistant glanced toward Vanessa, who responded with an imperious nod, her arms crossed as though daring Maria to argue. "There's nothing more for you to do here," the assistant said. "Please gather your things and leave." Maria's heart pounded so loud it was almost a thrum against her ears. She felt the heat of dozens of eyes now trained on her as she hesitated. Some designers paused mid-conversation, a few models arched their brows, and Vanessa's face held that predatory satisfaction Maria dreaded. Her humiliation was being staged for all to see, a performance arranged to remind her of her supposed place in this glittering world. With slow, trembling steps, Maria bent to retrieve her modest cleaning bag, feeling the piercing gaze of the crowd. She kept her head down, willing herself not to meet anyone's eyes, but she was painfully aware of the faint snickers from a small group nearby. A slender woman in a crisp white blouse whispered to her companion, who stifled a laugh behind a delicate hand. "You shouldn't even be here," Vanessa called out, loud enough so those nearby could hear. "This place is for creators, not for cleaners chasing dirt." A sharp sting of shame and anger bubbled inside Maria. She straightened fractionally, biting her lip to stop the tremor in her voice. "Please," she murmured, "I don't want trouble." Vanessa, enjoying the moment, stepped closer, her voice dripping with condescension. "The trouble is that people like you show up, thinking you belong here. Maybe next time don't try to sneak into a world you don't understand." The room seemed to close in. The music dimmed beneath the unkind words, the sparkle of the event suddenly dulled by the weight of exclusion. Maria's breath hitched again as a sudden flush crept over her face. She wished she could disappear, wanted nothing more than to vanish into the silence behind the megawatt smiles and crystal chandeliers. A few attendees exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked away as if trying to dissociate themselves from the drama unfolding so visibly. One young designer avoided Vanessa's gaze, fidgeting nervously with her cocktail glass. Yet no one stepped forward to say a word for Maria. The unspoken rules of this world were clear to them all: outsiders were not welcome. Maria's hands shook as she gathered her sparse belongings. Her mind raced but yielded no bold thought, no righteous retort. She was a cleaner, invisible to this high-fashion crowd, and a belonging was a luxury she could never afford. The assistant's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts once more. "You really must go." Desperate to escape, Maria turned toward the exit, footsteps light but uneven as she weaved through the crowd. The muffled whispers followed her like shadows. She stumbled past mannequins draped in silks and glitter, the sheer fabrics reminding her of a world she'd only admired from the periphery. Outside the grand glass doors, crisp night air wrapped around her. Maria took a deep breath, clearing the sting of embarrassment, and pulled out her phone to call her closest friend. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through contacts and finally hit call. "Maria," came the warm, familiar voice. I'm okay," Maria said, swallowing hard. "But it was awful. Vanessa made a scene. I wanted to work without trouble, but she wanted to humiliate me." The friend's voice softened with concern. "Don't listen to her. You know who you are." Maria offered a weak smile, but the cold feeling inside her lingered stubbornly. The call ended, and she lingered on the doorstep, wishing for a moment that the night would undo itself. Suddenly, footsteps approached swiftly behind her. Maria turned to see Lucas, the quiet fashion photographer, stepping out from the shadows with a small camera slung over his shoulder. He muttered, "I saw what happened. I don't think it was right." Maria blinked in surprise, unsure what to say. Usually, photographers at these events blended effortlessly into the background, unnoticed except for the occasional flash of their lenses. But Lucas held a quiet confidence, his dark eyes warm and steady. "I have something to show them," he said, voice low but determined. "Something that will make them see you, really see you." Maria's heart skipped a beat. "But I have nothing to offer here." Lucas shook his head, peeling open a portfolio case to reveal a collection of striking photographs, candid shots of models in natural poses, behind-the-scenes moments filled with raw emotion, imperfections caught beautifully, images captured by Maria herself during quieter moments at past shows. The crowd had begun to drift near, curiosity sparked by the unexpected display. The photographs held a piercing honesty, far removed from the polished veneer of the runway. Whispers spread quickly. Designers and guests paused, leaning in to examine the photos. Gasps of admiration emerged from unexpected corners. Maria stood rooted, overwhelmed and unsure if this was dream or reality. Vanessa's smug smirk faltered as eyes turned away from her and toward the photos Lucas held high. Murmurs of praise filled the air, people recognizing the talent in the one they had so easily dismissed. Lucas smiled gently. Maria's eye for fashion goes beyond fabric and stitches. These photos capture the soul of the show, the artistry you think you own but can't see. A soft ripple of laughter traveled through the crowd, not cruel but amused, directed not at Maria but at those who had so quickly judged her without knowing. Maria swallowed her rising hope as she saw Vanessa's pride dissolve into awkwardness. The designer's cold gaze flitted across the room, now confronted by quiet challenge instead of blind adoration. The hum of approval grew louder, the crowd's focus shifted with surprising speed. Maria's hands no longer shook. For the first time that evening, a spark of strength lit inside her chest. Still, the night was far from over. The sting of shame hovered close, a reminder of the harsh reality just minutes before. Yet now there was a glimmer, a chance to change the story. The question hovered silently: would this moment mark the end of Maria's invisibility, or would it be another fleeting glimpse before the world turned away once more? The crowd's murmur intensified as Lucas carefully passed the portfolio toward one of the designers standing nearby. The man, tall and poised, turned page after page, his eyes widening with each image. The photographs were unlike anything the guests had expected to see from a cleaner, raw, evocative, and brimming with a unique perspective on the event that no professional photographer had captured. Maria's heart pounded, but this time with a mix of nervousness and hope. She stood quietly as heads turned, glances shifting to her in newfound recognition. The thought that the world might finally acknowledge her creative vision felt both exhilarating and surreal. Lucas glanced at her, his gaze steady and encouraging. He then signaled to Vanessa, who had been standing nearby, a cocktail glass gripped tightly in her hand. Vanessa's face, once smug and imperious, now tightened with a flicker of unease. The surprise on her features was unmistakable, her effortlessly constructed shell cracking under the weight of Maria's unexpected triumph. Lucas spoke softly but clearly, these pictures were all taken by Maria. She's been sneaking shots, capturing the heart of fashion in moments others dismiss. These images tell stories the runway can't. Gasps of surprise rippled through the crowd. One of the younger designers, a quietly observant woman with striking black-rimmed glasses, looked at Maria, then whispered, "Why have none of us seen this before?" A few other guests nodded in agreement. The earlier dismissals and snide comments now clung awkwardly to Vanessa, whose cheeks flushed with the sting of exposure. The room began to buzz, not with whispered ridicule, but with genuine admiration. "I never expected," a model murmured, trailing her words off as she studied a shot framed with perfect light and shadow. "You see the unseen moments, the ones that make fashion real." Maria exhaled slowly, a flush easing from her cheeks. She couldn't believe her photographs were changing minds here, on what had started as the most humiliating night of her life. Lucas smiled and gestured toward her. Maria's work captures emotion and truth, the very soul Vanessa and this room so often pride themselves on. Her eye is rare. Vanessa's mouth opened slightly, as if to argue, but she found herself rendered speechless by the tide turning around her. She had built her reputation on exclusivity and high standards, but Maria's pictures exposed a truth beyond what scripted fashion moments could display. Slowly, an older designer who had remained silent until now spoke up. "Talent isn't measured by the label you wear or the clothes on your back, it's the vision you bring." Maria's photos show that clearly. The weight of those words rippled through the room, softening attitudes and shifting perspectives. Maria felt a wave of warmth rising inside her, tempered by the knowledge that this was not just recognition, it was the start of something new. Voices softened from derision to questions. "Maria, how long have you been taking photos?" a well-dressed influencer inquired, stepping closer. Maria hesitated, then answered, "For years, but only as a passion. I've been working as a cleaner to support my family, but I never stopped looking through my lens." Lucas nodded in affirmation. "She's been saving to get better equipment, learning on her own, all while working long hours." Another young designer smiled encouragingly. "You must let us see more. This perspective is what fashion needs." Maria swallowed her disbelief, touched by the genuine interest that surrounded her. It would have been easy to retreat back into invisibility, but tonight had proven otherwise. Vanessa's expression shifted from thinly veiled disdain to something more reluctant, perhaps even grudging respect. The room had already begun to see beyond the surface, and her usual harsh judgments no longer held sway. As the photographs continued to circulate, laughter quietly bubbled around the room. It wasn't laughter at Maria, but rather at those who had been so quick to dismiss her raw talent. The earlier smugness seemed out of place now, replaced by a polite awkwardness that Vanessa fought to mask. Maria's cheeks warmed once more, but this time from a different light, the fragile glow of acceptance. The crowd was no longer a barrier but a bridge, offering a glimpse of belonging beyond mere job titles or appearances. Lucas caught Maria's eye and simply said, "Show them more when you're ready. Tonight's just the beginning." The atmosphere shifted dramatically, charged now with possibility. Some guests who had been indifferent or aloof now approached Maria, introducing themselves and expressing genuine admiration. Vanessa stepped aside, her posture stiff but quieter, as others filled the space with conversation sparkling with respect rather than scorn. Maria breathed deeply, the tumult of emotion calming as a seed of confidence took root. She was no longer just a cleaner working unnoticed in the shadows, she was an artist whose vision demanded attention. As the event moved forward, photos flooded digital screens and social media feeds streaming from the party. People marveled at the behind-the-scenes artistry revealed by Maria's work, and influencers tagged and praised the unexpected talent. For Maria, the evening was a turning point, proof that judgment based on appearances was shallow and that true brilliance often rose where least expected. The night's triumph, however, was only the start. Questions swirled around her. How would the fashion world respond next? Would she sustain this moment or be cast aside once more as merely a fleeting sensation? For now, Maria allowed herself a rare smile. Against all odds, she had risen from humiliation to acclaim in the space of one evening. She stepped to the edge of the studio floor, glancing back at Vanessa, whose forced composure betrayed a simmering storm beneath. Tonight, Maria had won a quiet victory, not just over an elite crowd's prejudice but also over her own doubts and fears. And as the flashes of cameras pulsed around her, Maria knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter she had long dreamed of, a story yet to unfold with all the vibrant complexity her photographs had captured so beautifully. After the initial excitement quieted, Maria found herself pulled aside by a group of designers eager to learn more about her work. They listened intently as she spoke, her voice still soft but growing steadier with each word. It was a moment that felt both foreign and deeply rewarding, to speak as an equal in a world she had only skimmed as an outsider. One of the designers, a cheerful woman named Isabel, asked gently, "Maria, tell me about yourself. How did you come to be here, at this very event, carrying that camera and those powerful images?" Maria took a deep breath, memories swirling behind her eyes. "Photography has always been with me," she began, speaking with a quiet passion. "Before I started working as a cleaner, I studied art and dreamed of making a career out of capturing stories through images. Life didn't make that easy. I had to support my family, so I took whatever jobs were available." She glanced down briefly, the bruises of judgment still fresh in her mind but tempered by this kindness. "My clothes tonight are simple because I couldn't afford anything fancy. But these hands," she said, lifting them slightly, "have held a camera in stolen moments, seeing things most don't notice. I've been saving, learning, and creating wherever and whenever I could." Isabel nodded, her eyes warm with understanding. It's amazing how often the most genuine talent hides behind circumstances nobody chooses. Another designer, a soft-spoken man named Elias, chimed in, "That's what makes your photos so compelling, they're honest. They capture light and shadow in a way that feels unfiltered, real." His smile suggested genuine admiration. "You've given us a gift tonight, Maria." Maria felt her pulse settle and a cautious hope start to bloom. She glanced across the room and saw Lucas chatting casually with other photographers, his presence a steady support that made her feel less alone. It was clear he believed in her, and that belief had carried her through the night's storm. For years, Maria had believed the dream of becoming a recognized photographer was out of reach. Her life had twisted into compromise, sacrifices made to put food on the table and bills paid. The modest apartment she called home was neat but sparse, her walls lined with a handful of faded prints she had taken over time. Her camera was secondhand, its wearer a silent witness to years of quiet dedication. Yet tonight, standing amidst people now eager to hear her story, Maria felt something fragile but powerful awaken, the idea that her past need not define her future, and that her art could speak for itself without apology. She recalled the countless evenings practicing in dimly lit corners, the whispered encouragement she gave herself when no one else listened. Her hands remembered the weight of the camera, its lens bringing into focus the world she could shape with patience and eye. This moment was a triumph not just over Vanessa's scorn but over years of invisibility. The dress Maria wore was plain, yes, but the story she embodied shone brighter than any designer label. Vanessa remained a silent figure on the edges, her cold gaze a stark contrast to the warmth Maria was suddenly surrounded by. The other guests' walls had lowered, barriers of class and status softened by Maria's undeniable talent and openness. A young assistant approached Maria timidly and offered, "If you're willing, we have an opportunity to feature your photos in the next issue of our magazine. We want the world to see this side of fashion." Maria's breath caught. She looked to Lucas, who nodded encouragingly. This was the invitation she had dreamed of, the moment she had fought so hard to earn. She smiled, gratitude spilling through her. "I'd like that," she said simply. Later, the crowd began to disperse, but Maria lingered near a large window overlooking the city streets lit by swirling traffic and twinkling lights. The juxtaposition of the glittering event and the humbler world beyond reminded her of the contrasts in her own journey, the path between dreams and reality, hardship and hope. Isabel stepped beside her, the two women watching the night together. "You've changed the way we see things tonight, Maria," she said softly. "Not just the photos, but you." Maria let out a slow breath, a weight easing from her shoulders. Maybe we all need to remember that brilliance isn't always obvious at first glance. Isabel smiled. Exactly. As she prepared to leave, Maria thought about the long nights ahead, not just as a cleaner, but as an artist with a chance to share her vision fully. She carried the promise of change not just in her camera bag but inside herself. That evening, back in her small apartment, Maria carefully unwrapped one of the freshly printed photos from her portfolio. It was a candid shot of a model laughing, free and radiant behind the scenes. She held the image close, a physical token of everything she had kept private until now. Her phone buzzed with messages, kind words from the designers, encouragement from friends, even a few unexpected apologies. But the most important message was the one she sent herself in a quiet moment. This was not the end of the story, but the start of a new chapter. Maria sat by the window, the city's hum a lullaby of possibilities. Though the world outside was vast and unknown, inside her heart bloomed a clarity. She had found her place, not by chance, but by resilience and the courage to reveal her true self. The dawn awaited, carrying with it the promise of days when her photographs would speak louder than whispered doubts, and when the world of fashion would see beyond the surface to the unique artist she had always been. In the days following the event, word of Maria's photographs spread quietly but swiftly through the fashion community. The initial shock had given way to genuine interest, and invitations began to arrive at her modest apartment, requests for interviews, offers to collaborate, and even proposals from boutique galleries eager to showcase her work. For someone who had spent years in the shadows, the sudden light was almost overwhelming. Meanwhile, Vanessa found herself facing the consequences of the night's events. The fashion house's management had received multiple complaints about her treatment of Maria. The incident, once dismissed as a minor social misstep, grew into a topic of serious discussion. Vanessa was summoned to a meeting with the company's executives, where her usual confidence dimmed under the weight of firm reprimand. "You underestimated the impact of your words and actions," the head of the company said calmly. "Your behavior jeopardized not only the reputation of the event but also our commitment to inclusivity and respect. We expect better from our lead designer." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably but nodded. The apology she was required to issue was formal and rehearsed, though beneath the polished surface, remorse stirred, part regret for the damage done, part recognition that her narrow viewpoint had cost her respect. The fallout was swift. Some of her longtime collaborators questioned their continued association, wary of being linked to an exclusive culture that rejected talent based on social status or appearance. Vanessa's role was reconsidered, and though she kept her position for the time being, whispers about the next steps began circulating among industry insiders. Maria, on the other hand, was buoyed by unexpected support. At her first official exhibition, held in a downtown gallery, walls adorned with her photographs captured the attention of a diverse crowd: designers, photographers, art lovers, and everyday people drawn by the raw honesty of her work. The modest space buzzed with laughter, conversation, and applause, a testament to the power of talent recognized and embraced. She moved through the event with a soft smile, gratitude shining in her eyes. Friends she had made during the launch night surrounded her, their encouragement a balm for old wounds. Lucas was by her side, camera in hand but more relaxed, proud to see Maria stepping confidently into a role she had earned. At one point, a young aspiring photographer pressed her hand gently. "You've given me courage," the girl said. "I've felt invisible too, but seeing your success makes me believe anything is possible." Maria touched her shoulder, warmth spreading through her chest. "Keep shooting," she urged. "Your voice matters." Later, alone for a moment, Maria reflected on the path she had traveled. The late nights cleaning studios, the small dreams nurtured quietly in the background, the sting of rejection that had once seemed unbearable. Now, those memories were inked into the story she had rewritten, not as a tale of defeat, but of resilience. Her phone chimed with a message. It was from Vanessa. "I owe you a sincere apology," it read. "I was wrong to judge you. Your talent and spirit have reminded me that greatness doesn't wear labels. I hope we can move forward with respect." Maria considered the message, acknowledging the genuine effort behind it. Forgiveness was a choice, and tonight felt right. She typed back, "Thank you for your words. I hope so too." The exchange settled in her mind, a quiet closing of a difficult chapter and a hopeful opening of new possibilities. As the exhibition drew to a close, Maria looked around at the smiling faces, the heartfelt conversations. The journey that once seemed impossible was unfolding in ways she had scarcely imagined. She turned toward Lucas, who caught her eye and nodded with a smile that said, "You did it." Maria's smile deepened, the satisfaction of being seen, not just as a cleaner, but as an artist, filling her with a quiet joy. It was a moment of vindication, not fueled by vengeance but by the simple truth that talent and heart could transcend barriers. Before the night ended, Maria addressed the crowd softly. "Thank you all for believing in my work, in me. Remember, brilliance often hides in unexpected places. Don't let appearances blind you to the potential in others." Her words hung in the air, inviting reflection and a renewed sense of openness. Later, as the guests filtered away and the gallery lights dimmed, Maria felt a gentle exhaustion, a good kind of tiredness that comes from fighting hard and winning even harder. At home, with her camera resting nearby and photographs carefully framed on the wall, she felt ready for the future. The world had finally begun to see her, but more importantly, she had seen herself anew. To everyone watching this story, what would you have done if you were Maria? Would you have found the courage to reveal your true talents despite the harsh shadows cast by others? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next inspiring tale. See you in our next story.